Right now, I am every RSM's worst nightmare. I'm unshaven, I've lost my puggery, my equipment is mixed matched left, right and centre. But when you are trying to fight for the very existence and survival of a nation, i.e. a world war, some things are more important, like the condition and quality of your small arm. Like this Lithgow manufactured SMLE, the service rifle of the Australian Army and Australian Defence Force from its inception all the way through to the 1960s. For the beaches of Gallipoli, the mud of the Somme, the sands of the desert, the Tobruk, the Mediterranean, jungles of Kokoda, all the way through the Pacific Theatre, the freezing cold, snow, sleet, and rain of Korea. This rifle was what Australian servicemen bet their lives on. Okay, Lithgow SMLE, okay, No.1 Mark III Star. We've already covered the SMLE on the channel once before. That was my Enfield. This one is an Australian, as alluded to in the intro. This one's got some unique features on it, which we're going to cover, which gives us an indication as to the time and the period that this gun was in service and may have actually seen action. We're also going to take this opportunity to cover off on some of the things to look for when you're trying to purchase your first SMLE. Small Arms Factory Lithgow, okay? Made a bunch of these. This one, particular one, is dated 1943. That's not going to work. Now that's a bayonet. So, dated 1943 on the action. The barrel is 44 and the stock is marked 43. Now, some people get really wrapped up around the axles about having a all matching 303. Lithgow was pretty prolific in where they put their serial numbers, including elements on the stock and also on the end of the nose cap. This gun is matching in those terms. The action, the bolt, and the nose cap all match. The only ones that are important in terms of shooting, okay, is the action and the bolt. And again, this doesn't really matter. Why? Because you've got interchangeable bolt heads, folks. So if you just wanted a shooter, doesn't matter if the bolt is mixed matched. And we covered off how bolts were mixed matched in the last video. So, Lithgow production. On the stock here, we've got all the Lithgow markings, okay? And yes, if your stock or your barrel or your action are all within 1 year of each other, that's close enough. Because remember, these guns weren't made as one single item going down a production line. Batches of actions were made, batches of bolts and batches of stocks, okay? And they were then assembled into completed rifles. So if your action and barrel was made end of 1943, but your timber was made, I don't know, January 1944. If this gun was put together in January 1944, or even February, chances are your stock and your action might mismatch by 1 year date. It doesn't matter, okay? That's just the way things were. Now this gun has been fitted with a dark green web sling. This is the original type, but I'm pretty sure this one's off an SLR. Again, close enough for authenticity's sake. Originals are available, but most of them are getting pretty tatty these days. Other thing to look for with your SMLEs is this mark right here, okay, which is the broad arrows stamped tip to tip, okay, which indicates that this gun was sold on post-service correctly and didn't just fall off the back of a truck somewhere. You may see a whole bunch of other markings, okay, obviously up on the barrel. If we remove the top cover, this is where things get really interesting for this rifle of Dillon's. Apart from the date stamp, which is 44 on your broad arrow and your proof marks for Lithgow, you'll see this jungle green dark paint. Now that gives you a pretty good indication as to what this rifle was put together for, okay? As alluded to in the intro, we did a lot of fighting in the Pacific Theatre, coming up through New Guinea, etc. What you've got with the SMLE by design is a metal barrel encased within timber, which creates a place for moisture to gather and rust to set in. One way of overcoming that, okay, parkerization only lasts so long. We weren't using the crackle finish or the black paint finish, enamel finish that the Brits were using, so we started painting things baby poop green. Everyone has seen a photo of an Owen gun? Same paint, guys, was applied onto the barrels, and there's actually elements of it on the bottom of the receiver. We haven't dropped this one out of the stock to see if it continues all the way through, but you can definitely see tinges of it. Another modification that was made, particularly during some factory refurbs and for jungle usage, was the drawers. So the actual drawers in the stock where the action butts up into the socket. Now the drawers, where the recoil is taken by the stock, often rotted out in jungle conditions. So on Australian rifles that have been through refit or were modified in the fields, bits of brass were screwed in and filed to fit, which was then copied over into the target shooting wheel to tighten up your stock to action fit. Point to remember, or the biggest thing that matters when you're trying to buy a rifle for anything other than collector's value, is the bore condition. The bore on this one, as we take a look back, is damn sharp. The edges of the rifling are dead square. The grooves are nice and deep, and they're shiny and clean. If the grooves are dark, that gives you an indication of two things. One, rust and pitting. Bad. But not insurmountable. If there's enough rifling there, the rifle will overcome it and will shoot accurately. It could also just mean that there's a big heap of oil, gunk and dust from people's collections as it's sat for 60, 70 years. And what that dust has done is amalgamated with the oil and just created a blockage. So if you buy a 303 or you're looking to buy a 303, see if you can put a patch through the bore first. If you get brown gunk, it might not be as bad as it looks. Then again, with any 303, the bore can look absolutely terrible and it still shoots just fine. It all depends on the individual gun. In particular, the stocking up. Speaking of which, stocking up on this one, the tension is dead perfect. Crown is another area you want to take a look at, okay? Is it sharp? Is it bright? It's not gouged. This one is beautiful and crisp. This gun we put over the range the other day and got it roughly zero, at least found out where we're shooting. This gun at 100 yards was throwing well in service accuracy groups, okay? You will see guns that were put together late war, and particularly guns that went through the 50s refurbs, and you'll see them in images all the time, with holes in the sight protector ears. That's a unique Australian feature, mainly for assisting in zeroing the rifle to allow the adjustment tool to slide in and will be wound left and right, but it also let a little bit more light in around that front sight while still keeping it protected and, more importantly, easier to clean. So don't get too wrapped around the axles if your gun doesn't have the windowed sight ears. Values on these guns is going up and up. Okay, the Australian used guns price at the moment for these is a little bit ridiculous, and it's up around $1,200, and for something like this, potentially even more. But remember, these guns have the value that we put on them. This gun tells us a story of a more desperate time. Okay, Australia literally fighting for its own survival. What's important is the men, women that went to action, carrying these and doing the work that needed to be done. Not pleasant, and they will forever be in our memories. That completes the overview on the Lithgow manufactured SMLE. Please comment down below. If you've got a Lithgow, tell us what features yours has got. And if you've got an oddity of a Lithgow, something a little bit different, let's talk about it. See if it's original or has been modified post-service. Also, the Lithgow Small Arms Museum often wants to hear about those oddities because they are still trying to put together the records from the years of manufacture. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you around.